If you're trying to conceive and feeling overwhelmed with fertility advice, then this podcast is for you. Welcome to Don't Tell Me to Relax, your fertility podcast and antidote to unhelpful fertility information. I'm Hannah, a fertility acupuncturist, teacher and campaigner for better fertility education. This podcast aims to empower and inform you about your menstrual cycle and fertility. It's basically all that information you didn't get in sex ed at school, with the aim of improving your understanding of your reproductive health and optimizing your fertility. Hello and welcome back to Don't Tell Me to Relax, the fertility podcast and the antidote to unhelpful fertility information. I am joined by the lovely Katy, and this episode is going to be a special episode all about what Katy does, because, in fact, I'm going to shut up. Katy, tell us, shut up, Hannah, tell us, what do you do?
I rub people's feet.
Yes.
And so I do reflexology, if you're not familiar with it. So, yeah.
And I thought it would be a really good opportunity to have an actual episode all about reflexology, so you can explain and we can learn a little bit about it and why it's used so much in the world of kind of fertility, pregnancy, women's health, how it links with your fertility awareness. That's what we're here to cover today. So tell us, how did you find reflexology?
My mum dragged me to an appointment. I was not believing it was a thing, but I was really struggling with anxiety at like a really young age, and my poor mum didn't know what else to do, so she'd been seeing a reflexologist and she was just like, it might help, like just give it a try. And I was like 14, giving her like the biggest eye roll in the world, like, yeah, someone rubbing my feet, like, what's that going to do? It sounds like the biggest pile of crap I've ever heard. So went in completely skeptical and came out a complete convert, because the reflexologist that I saw was like, oh, like, do you not sleep very well? She kind of knew where I was in my menstrual cycle. She could tell that my hips were really, like, there's lots going on there, because I was like training a lot to be a dancer at that point. And I was just like, how on earth can you tell that from my feet? And I was just really curious about it. So it's what's quite funny now is when I give treatments, generally people fall asleep, but I used to sit like bolt upright and be like, we did, what's that? And like I don't think I ever fell asleep during a treatment, because I was just so like, what are you doing? So it's just quite funny, like seeing that as like most people's experience, and it's my experience of reflexology now when I do have it. But it was I was just so like, I don't understand this, just so like mesmerized by it that yeah, so that's how I came to it.
And did you have it for a long period of time? Did from that point, have you always had reflexology, or have you sort of come and gone to it?
Come and gone, to be honest. There was a point, so when I was younger and like still living at home, I had it fairly consistently for quite a long time, like over several years. Would go, maybe there'd be times where I'd be going like monthly, maybe a bit more often than other times where like it would kind of drop out, but like way more consistent like when I was young. And then it wasn't until I trained to become a reflexologist that I then started to have it again. And like now I'll occasionally have it when my mate, who now lives in Bath, is in London. I'm like, can you rub my feet? So I did have some last week, which is really, really nice. Like I do love it when I can have it. I just think there's nothing else like it.
And so can you tell us like what, like people asking me this about acupuncture all the time, and I find it the hardest question to answer. So I'm sorry to ask you the question, but it is interesting to hear because everyone has a different opinion. What is it? What is reflexology? Like where does it stem from?
So what it is in reflexology, we believe that different parts of the body are mapped out at like the extremities of the body. The body. Wow.
Body is another word that
I don't think I've said that in. I don't. Oh no.
Body. I think you meant body.
I did mean body. So we believe that there's these areas that are mapped out at the extremities of the body. So that being the hands, the feet, and also the face and the ears. But I specialize in feet. So we believe that by working into these like little parts, so the reflexes, these little areas, that we can have an impact on the corresponding part of the body. So in terms of like where it sort of stems from, there's kind of foot pressing practices from like all over the world. It's kind of hard to say exactly where it came from, but definitely Southeast Asian cultures, there's a lot of history from there. And then there's also like some documentation of it in like some Egyptian tombs, which is kind of nuts when you see that. So yeah, hard to kind of give it a like definitive origin as such. But so yeah, there's different theories on how it works. It's a shame there's not quite as much research into reflexology as there is like acupuncture. But one of the theories sort of being that we have like, because we perform it at the extremities of the body, there's all these nerve endings there. So by working into the nerve endings, we're having an impact on the nervous system in that way, and then signaling stuff to move back and forth through the body. And there's a few other different theories as well in terms of how it works. Some people believe in it being like moving energies around the body, which I think for some people that can feel a bit too woo when you say it like that. But I definitely can say I've experienced that in my own body and then giving treatments to people. And but I think something that you and I speak about a lot is it's funny that this podcast is called Don't Tell Me to Relax, but it's like the relaxation element of it is like so valuable. And I think giving people a place to switch off and relax and like to learn to relax, because like just saying, as we say, like just someone telling you to relax, it's like fuck off, like that's not helpful. But actually going somewhere and someone like supporting you and treating you and having that quiet environment that's really hard to perhaps create on your own, I think that's where a lot of the kind of magic lies, really.
Yeah, I think that's so true, because that is what it's like in acupuncture as well. It's just having that time, isn't it? To, you know, if you don't believe in energy or any of those things, just that time to lie down, the focus is on you, you're not able to do anything. It's I don't know where else you get that time. And it just really kind of allows your any kind of like cortisol, adrenaline overload to just kind of brings that down. And I think it reminds the body how to rest, because so often we don't get reminders in the day. We get into bed often absolutely knackered, and you know, we're off to sleep, and hopefully we sleep all night. But when else through the day do you really kind of switch off and do that conscious kind of relaxation? And I think, you know, like I say, reminding the body, showing the body that this is a good state to be in, is a really powerful tool in itself.
Yeah, totally. And I think for a lot of people, it's one of the things I really like about reflexology is that it's like not an invasive treatment at all. So I'm literally just working on like the lower part of your legs and feet and nowhere else on the body. So it's not like you're being physically touched anywhere that maybe you don't feel comfortable or whatever. And it's very relaxing. So it's kind of like you learn that it's safe to relax as well, because I think a lot of people don't feel safe in like stillness in that respect. So I think like, and I've been talking a lot about this recently, because I think like learning to relax and learning that it's like safe to do that is just such a massive thing that kind of gets sidestepped, or like is kind of people forget that, or maybe don't even realize that that's why they find it so hard to relax, is like they just literally don't feel safe to.
Yeah, and that's really interesting, isn't it? And that's, you know, why it's so great to have you in our team, because sometimes people don't want to have needles, because that is an invasive treatment. You know, having needles put in you to relax does not make sense. Even though it does.
It does, it really does. I love it.
It really does, and we both know that. It's not for everybody. It really isn't for everybody. And I guess it's about having the choice of whether it's a reflexology, massage, acupuncture, however you find that place that brings you deep relaxation and exactly that feeling of safety is really, really important. And as you say, some people don't like having their feet touched, though, do they? Some people are averse. I have a very good friend she can't even take her socks off because she has such a thing about her feet. Yeah. But so for those people, it probably wouldn't be the most relaxing.
I mean, I have converted a few.
Have you?
Yeah, it's quite fun. It's normally when someone else has booked them in for a treatment and they're like, oh, I don't actually like my feet being touched. I'm like, see how we go. If you really hate it, we can stop. It's like, it's really not a problem.
Yeah.
But then they're like, it's not like being tickled. I think that's what a lot of people are worried about, that it's going to feel like you're being like, I mean, I hate being like my feet being tickled. I'm like, you don't ever come near me ever again. But it's because it's like a kind of, it's a consistent flowing, like rhythmic kind of treatment. It's not like me coming up being like, woo, gonna get you. So yeah, exactly. So it's like it's the total opposite of that.
And how long does it take to train? Like, how long do you train? Are there lots of different places? Is there lots of different schools to train in, or is it quite standardized?
There's quite a few different schools. So I trained at like the London School of Reflexology, and that was like weekends over a year. So I think there's about 14 contact days or something like that, and then you have to do 100 case studies.
Wow, it's a lot, isn't it?
It was a lot. Yeah. So there's quite a lot of time that goes into the training. So as much as like you think, oh, it's only 14 days, like there's a lot of hours you need to like put in outside of that. So that was to get the diploma, and then since then I've done training in fertility reflexology and maternity reflexology, and I've just booked today a CPD course for this year, which is going to be like using 5-element and like traditional Chinese medicine theory in reflexology. So I'm very excited to do that. It's not till October, but I've actually booked it, which I'm really pleased about. So.
Yeah, because it really feels like to me that there must be a crossover somewhere.
Yeah,
like it's you know, it feels quite similar in that, you know, we do a lot of points around the feet in acupuncture that are very grounding points, you know, that are very restorative. I can never say that word. Points, and I feel like that, you know, in the same way that acupuncture for some people tries to bring the energy down, it kind of tries to kind of ground people, especially if they've got anxiety or stress. I think reflexology is the same. So I can see how you could cross the streams. I can see how that could happen.
Yeah, no, definitely. I think it's funny that you say that the points in the feet are very grounding, because that's what a lot of people say having a treatment feels like, is that it's a very grounding experience. So that's interesting that's where the points are. Because
I guess what you might do in that course is look at acupressure points.
Yeah, they're going to combine some of that.
Yeah, nice. And so tell me, like, because it really does have an association, doesn't it? A bit like acupuncture has become very popular in the world of fertility and women's health and supporting pregnancy and labour. Reflexology has sort of been similar. Like, can you do reflexology for anything, or is it very much focused on women's health, fertility, pregnancy?
It can be beneficial for lots of different things. So like it's really great with like digestive issues and things. It can be good for kind of nervous system stuff. There's lots of reflexologists that work in like wards with cancer patients and supporting them through that as well, with like the lymphatic drainage elements and stuff. But there is like the fertility stuff is really interesting in terms of how it can help with that and seeing the impact of that. I mean, in terms of physically seeing the impact of that, doing preparation for birth treatments, excuse me, is the most interesting, because you'll be working the uterus reflex and the bump starts to move around like loads, and it's like, okay, it's nice to actually see that it is like doing something, because the rest of the time it's kind of like what your client's reporting back to you. But it's pretty exciting when you're like, I'm going to press this point and it's going to start moving. And so that, I think that alone for a lot of people makes them go like, oh, okay, there's like clearly some link happening here. So then in terms of with fertility and things, it just can be so beneficial for like particularly like cycle regulation and like pain and like helping to manage the pain and things like that. I find it really helps. And then particularly if people have issues with their digestion in relation to the menstrual cycle. I know a lot of people struggle with that, and it's really, I'd say, particularly good if you lean towards constipation. It's great at getting things moving. But again, I think so much of this happens as a result of that deep relaxation that you get during a treatment.
So it's like the knock-on effect of sort of the I guess rest and digest, isn't it? Like the fight or
And
flight, rest and
people's
digest.
people's stomachs will like be gurgling all over the place during treatments, and often people get really embarrassed about it, and I'm like, it's a sign it's working. Like, it's a good sign.
Yeah.
Like, you falling asleep and your stomach gurgling and you snoring, I'm like, I'm all here for it. Like, this means we're in the right place.
Yeah, and that's exactly what happens in acupuncture as well, is that you're on the money when the stomach starts going. And also, I know that because people always message us to say what an amazing night's sleep they have after treatment.
Yeah.
So again, it's just about the body being in a relaxed enough state to fall asleep and stay asleep, as opposed to kind of having this imbalance of melatonin and cortisol, which means that it kind of wakes up through the night or takes a long time to go to sleep. So it really, and I guess the knock-on effect of having a good night's sleep is it's so much better for your hormone production. So yeah, amazing.
Yeah, it's a nice like full circle kind of effect that it definitely has.
And I think when I know that when in our clinic, when people are going through IVF, a lot of the time people don't want to have more needles. I mean, it's the best and the worst thing, because obviously acupuncture is really helpful, but I always feel, it's more needles. It's more kind of, intervention needles. And yes, for lots of people, it can be relaxing, but often I think, we say to people, have some reflexology instead of having the acupuncture, because just have a break from the needles. People are bruised. It's a lot. And I think the reflexology is a very nurturing kind of, a caring treatment. So when you've been going through such a difficult time and everything feels so fragile and you feel so vulnerable, it can be so powerful to have it, especially just after egg collection, just after transfer, in that 2-week wait. It is, people often come and say how amazing they find the treatment at that point.
Yeah, definitely. Like, you see people coming in and they're almost like vibrating with anxiety, and it's like understandably so. Like, IVF or just the 2-week wait in general, like, it's so much to kind of sit through, and then they leave the treatment in a totally different place, and like that I just think is so valuable, because it's so giving yourself like that level of like deep relaxation alone. I think unless you've been like meditating for like a decade, like, it's really hard to do. So having that space to go to and knowing that you can just like settle down, feel just, even if it just brings the anxiety levels like down like a notch, like they're not necessarily going to completely go away, but just so you're at a level where you're like, okay, I feel I can cope again now, is really important.
Yeah, and when people get pregnant, like acupuncture, reflexology is completely safe, isn't it? All the way through pregnancy, even from when you get that first positive test, people can come right the way through pregnancy because it's completely safe. And like you say, it's just having that place where you can come and you can do something to relax. Because obviously, if you've been on a fertility journey, if you've had failed rounds of IVF, if you've been through miscarriage, those early days of pregnancy are absolutely terrifying, and you feel completely awash as to what can I do, how can I support you, how can you bring that anxiety down. And when you're in that state, meditation, as much as I like a bit of meditation, well, I can't actually, I say that I can't meditate because I can't, so hands up again for full disclosure, but I can lie on a couch and have some amazing reflexology to get me into that state. So if you are somebody who struggles and you can't always follow the apps, then I think it's something that you can do that can enable your body to get into that state.
Yeah, 100%.
And so do you think, like, if you're somebody who's looking for a reflexologist to support their fertility or menstrual cycle issues or their pregnancy, can you go to see any reflexologist, or do you think it's always better to look for somebody who has further training or specialism in that area?
I would definitely look for someone that has further training and specialism in that area, just because they're going to have a real understanding of the menstrual cycle on like a basic level, but then also any issues or complications that can come up. Because I would say often at the point that people are searching for reflexology to help these things, it's probably because they're having some issues. So I would definitely, look for someone that's had additional training. I would look probably at the Association of Reproductive Reflexologists website. So I'm part of that association, and anyone there is going to be trained to really high standard in fertility reflexology, but also maybe just reach out to, because there's not necessarily that many of us that are like trained in the fertility reflexology stuff. So I would just reach out to people and see how much experience they've had treating those people, and if like what their kind of understanding of treating fertility clients is, because there are a lot of people that maybe haven't specifically done that course, but you'd still benefit from having reflexology. Just if you see someone that is trained in fertility reflexology, they're going to understand how to like tailor the treatment to specifically like where you are in your menstrual cycle, where you are in your IVF cycle, and all those different kind of things that come up.
And ideally, how often do you think people should have treatment in an ideal world?
In an ideal world, I would like to see someone weekly for one menstrual cycle, and then coming once before ovulation and once after. So that's kind of like the ideal scenario. Or still weekly for one full menstrual cycle, but then timing the treatments based on when you get issues within your menstrual cycle, hopefully to kind of like simmer them down is the way I kind of think of it. So maybe just timing the treatments around what goes on in your cycle. So say you really struggle with pain on day 2 and 3 of your cycle, trying to come like on like the couple of days before your period starts, or even day 1 if you feel able to get to an appointment then.
And I guess because I always say to people, if you struggle with PMS, if PMS is your thing, if you have like a day, I don't know, day 22 or something, it's a really good day to come for acupuncture. And I guess in a similar way is like those sort of real touch points of your cycle. If you can get a treatment in around that time, it can just really help rebalance what's happening and kind of just, give you a bit of extra support through a difficult time, I think.
Yeah, no, I totally agree with that as like a way to try and get your treatments in.
Yeah. And so you are also a fertility awareness teacher. So how do the two, do you do the two together? How do the two link together?
So I do them as like two separate offerings as such, but they do link together like really, really nicely. So I'm kind of bringing a bit of both into each of them. So like my group course that I'm just running, there's lots of like reflexology videos that you can watch in there to like do it yourself, because you don't get the same level of relaxation, but it is something you can do to yourself to help with that kind of stress management thing. Like we know about the links between like cortisol and progesterone and how that can really impact the cycle, and just generally how stress impacts you in life. So helping to bring it down there. But then what I really love is when I'm working with fertility awareness clients and they're charting their cycles, we know exactly where they are in their cycle. So we know exactly what type of treatment to give them. There's no kind of questions of like, do you think you've ovulated? Like, it's like, no, we look at the chart like, yeah, we've confirmed ovulation. Okay, I'm going to do a post-ovulation treatment. So I really like it in that respect, because it means the client is getting much more of what they need for that particular time.
Yeah. And that is again what's brilliant about seeing somebody who specializes in that area, because you're going to get the treatment, which is great in itself, but on top of that, you're going to get that extra kind of help and support and guidance and signposting and information about supporting your cycle or your fertility or your general health, because you've got that understanding of what's important. And that is a really good crossover, isn't it? I think, where you can bring those two things together, the treatment itself and then all the kind of education and empowerment with all your information and knowledge around that, I think is absolutely brilliant and so needed, because where else do you go to get that?
Yeah, definitely. Like, I just wish there was like more information out there. I wish there was more research into reflexology, of like how effective it can be, because lots of people just immediately go, like I did, the big eye roll, going like, that's not going to do anything.
Yeah.
And there's little bits of research out there about what it can do, like about people that have reflexology in the run up to their labour can like have like shorter labour or like less pain during their labour and things. So like there's some research out there, but I just wish there was more to be like, look, it's a thing.
What we need is like a big pharmaceutical company, because they're the ones who do the research, aren't they? Because they've got the money and I guess the inclination and a reason why. But I mean, I'm not sure unless we could find some kind of like cream that we could use that they could sell for some foot issue at the same time. Maybe, but yeah, it's hard, isn't it? It's the same with acupuncture. It's very, very difficult to do the research. It's very difficult as well to have a control, because if it's the medicine, obviously you can give people the medicine and then you can give them the fake medicine, so a fake tablet, and it's a really much more straightforward piece of research. Whereas how do you not give people reflexology to then see how they respond? It's you either do it or you don't. So it's tricky and it's complicated, but just because there isn't science behind it doesn't mean it should be discounted. And I really believe the same with acupuncture. It's I always say to people, just try it for yourself. That's the best way. Try it for yourself. Totally. And if you like it, fantastic. Come and join our crowd. And if you don't, then find something else. Yeah.
No, I always say that to clients, that particularly if they've been openly a bit like, oh, I'm not sure if this is for me. I'm like, just see how you feel. Like, see how you feel after the treatment. Also see if you enjoy the treatment. Like you say, if ultimately you're like, I hate you touching my feet, I'm like, don't come back. Like in the nicest way possible. I'm like, if you don't enjoy the treatment, like what's the point? You're not going to get the same benefits if you're kind of sat there tense and like, oh, it's like, it's kind of a similar theory. I hope this makes sense. Like, I don't give particularly hard pressure treatments because I think that makes you tense up and then you can't relax in the same way. So if you're not enjoying the treatment and you're tense, you're not going to relax in the same way. So
you know what, I'm exactly the same, because I don't use, as you know, I don't use a lot of needles, and I don't use big needles. I use the tiniest needles known to man, because I don't like being needled, and I know that can just actually put more stress on the body. So if you have a massage and it hurts, it can make you feel more tense, and so it's a similar theory for reflexology and acupuncture. Okay, well that's really helpful. Thank you, Katy. Tell everyone where. So you work in quite a few different places. So tell us where you are. So if people want to find out more about you, where you are.
So I'm down in your clinics on Fridays. So I alternate between Streatham and Balham. So fortnightly in each place. And then the rest of the time I'm in East London. So on Thursdays I'm in Haggerston, so that's Thursday evenings. And then Sunday I'm in Dalston. So all of the booking is on my website if anyone wants to try that out. And I also do the occasional home visit in Hackney. So home visits are really great, particularly towards that like the end of pregnancy, when maybe you just kind of want to be at home a bit more and don't have to travel so much. Or if you just don't want to travel, it can be really nice.
Well, thank you very much for telling us all about it. And if anyone wants to get in contact with Katy, then obviously I'll put all her information in the episode show notes. And thank you, Katy, for coming down all the way to South London every Friday to work in our clinic, because we love having you there. And
I love being there.
It's so brilliant to have something different to acupuncture to offer. And I know that every single patient who ever comes to see you always says how amazing it is. So and I'm not just saying that is the truth. So thank you, because we really appreciate it. All right, well, thanks everyone for listening. If you have any questions, as always, please get in contact, and we'll see you next time.
Bye!
If you've enjoyed listening to this and want to find out more, then come and join my free community in Facebook. We have loads of resources. You can catch up on all our previous webinars and be the first to know about forthcoming events. To sign up, just follow the link in the show notes. And if you'd like to work one-to-one with myself or one of the team, then please see our website, hannahpern.com, where you can book in directly or organise a discovery call to find out how we can support your fertility and your reproductive health.